Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another video. How's everyone doing, and how is your Monday going? For today's video, we just experienced a wild game. If you're wondering why, it's because this might be the first game where I get so many kills, but still can't carry the game properly on my own. Most of these kills were simply due to the sheer power of my auto attacks. The fights were so random and chaotic that the enemy team seemed hopeless, yet we were more desperate than ever. As always, I wanted to start by invading and grabbing the enemy buff since we were facing Brand. But look and behold, the enemy top laner left his lane to try and contest me. League of Legends always surprises us with the variety of questionable players you find in every game, whether they're on your team or the enemy's. After seeing him, I decided to pull back and clear my camps. But since Brand decided to gank bot side at level 3, I cleared his side and then paid our beloved Dr. Mundo a visit to give him a little payback for his interference. Typically, the enemy will either ward or give up their position for a bit of extra gold, and experience that they'll end up giving away later in the game. In case you're wondering about the rank, we're sitting around low diamond, high emerald these days. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to break through diamond to master, and I think the issue is that I still don't have what it takes to carry by myself. I always need some help in the mid-game, whether during engages or just for some extra damage. But since I don't have what it takes to solo carry, I can't complain too much. Now in this game, since we're facing Brand, the goal is to apply as much pressure as possible in the early game before he reaches level 6. In other words, we need to kill anything that can be killed and go for aggressive plays. Hopefully we can secure a few kills and get into a safer mid-game. Something else happened in Champ Select. Our top laner counterpicked himself and started complaining, which was a bit odd. Another issue we're facing is that the enemy team is pumping out a lot of damage, and I don't think there's any synergy between our items. When dealing with things like execution damage and magic damage, there aren't many items that will keep you alive at this point in the game. Someone once said that in the current state of League of Legends, it's almost reportable to build a full tank, because tanks are just meant to die. You're better off going with an off-tank build, where you can still do considerable damage while having enough tankiness to survive enemy bursts. Whenever I'm unsure about a build, I opt for press the attack and evaluate the game from there. At this stage, I think Sunderer Sky is the meta, even though I don't particularly like the item. It seems like the right choice against their comp, and the main reason is that I'll most likely be locked up by Ashe's Arrow, Brand's Stun, and Yone CC. So that extra healing will be beneficial once we complete the item. After that, I think I'll go with Iceborne Gauntlet because I need to be able to catch someone, keep them in range, sustain through the fight, and induce some tilt for that target. Now that we've managed to have a decent early game, the real challenge will start in the mid-game, and specifically when we group and try to contest the Drakes. At this stage of the game, this is where people's true mettle is shown. For example, here I am, desperate to secure these 3 grubs and deny the enemy team the benefits of acquiring 4 stacks of void grubs. But where is our mid laner? We don't know. He's off in mid lane, pushing waves and poking the enemy mid laner. Why? Who knows? He left us to fight alone. Now, I think it was my mistake, but honestly, it's not wrong to make these kinds of mistakes because you assume that there's some kind of basic teamwork. Imagine being in an office, and by mistake you leave the bathroom with some toilet paper stuck to your shoe or somewhere on your body that you don't notice. This is your mistake. Yet you expect someone to point it out to you, right? Like, hey man, you've got something on you. Similarly, in our game, if this idiot doesn't want to come help, he should at least ping us to back off. Yet, he didn't. He didn't even look into our general direction. He didn't assist, just kept overextending and poking for no reason instead of helping us, or at least giving us a heads up. The mistake we're making here is assuming that our allies are going to behave like rational people. This is what happens when you start expecting things from other players in the mid-game. That's when everything goes sideways. You begin making desperate calls, hoping that your team will grow some sense and help out. But instead you keep dying, which means you can't farm, you can't clear, and you can't ward. You lose experience, gold, and vision. And the worse it gets, the more your teammates will start blaming you, as if you're the one sabotaging the game on purpose. So the best thing you can do is just farm. If my team wants to farm, then I'll farm too. There's no shame in it. Eventually, they'll start wondering why we haven't secured any drakes or made any plays, and they'll realize that their lack of coordination led to this. They'll start asking questions like, where's our pressure? Or, why didn't we get any drakes? And I'll just say, well, we're in this mess because you idiots decided to do your own thing. It's not my job to make you play better. We should be playing as a team, and if any of you wants to farm, then we should all be farming. Games like this make me nostalgic for playing Volibear with Jungle Teleport and Hullbreaker. The old me would completely ignore this nonsense, start skirmishes, and force my team to deal with the enemy while I split pushed. I think I need to get back to that. I need to find a way to push teleport instead of flash. I'll start watching replays and see how often flash is really useful for me, and maybe I'll refine that playstyle. It might just be the key to reaching master. The only issue with that playstyle is that it is very tiring, but it is very fun. Every game where I played jungle with teleport was epic. The sad part about this game is that our coordination is terrible. It's nearly impossible to set up a proper fight in the jungle or anywhere else. The main issue is that we have too many champions trying to engage and make plays. For example, we have Tahm Kench trying to dive in, swallow someone and bring them back to the grinder to finish him, Malphite, aiming for a 5-man ultimate, and myself, trying to dive the enemy backline and take out Ashe and Ezreal. This makes it hard to coordinate and find balance with our composition. To make matters worse, the team has started blaming each other, and some are even flaming me for not engaging. If you're wondering why I'm holding back, it's because we're losing every fight, which means we're doing something wrong. We need to be patient and figure out how to play as a team. Otherwise, I may as well go jungle with teleport and split push rather than running around like headless chickens hoping to win objectives. At this rate, continuing to play like this guarantees a loss. As you can see, whenever we fight, something always goes wrong. I think part of the issue is that we're fighting outside of our team's range. The enemy team has more mobility with some slow and knows how to bait us into their territory, leaving our backline without proper protection. Additionally, the collateral damage is massive. Brand's ultimate alone can wipe out 50% of our carry's health just from the bounces. Failing to notice these small details is what's leading to our current situation. But the silver lining is that we're still trying to win. Even after losing fights at Baron and Drake, a tiny glimmer of hope remains. One little comeback can reignite our spirits. And the fact that we can still kill any enemy target if we focus all our damage is our first step towards success. We just need to find the right sequence for these fights. For instance, we could let Tahm Kench engage first. The enemy will likely start retreating, and then Malphite can follow up with his ultimate, forcing the enemy team to burn their mobility spells like Flash or their invulnerability skills. After that, I can engage as the third front line in the hopes of killing a high-value target. If we approach the fight this way, we can extend the fight long enough for our backline to clean up. Since the enemy team doesn't have hard engage, just a strong front line and 3 damage dealers, it becomes a game of outlasting their initial burst. We create a 4v3 scenario where their front line has to work hard to bridge the gap to our backline. All of this, of course, assumes that our backline doesn't play recklessly and end up getting too close to the danger zone. After so many failed attempts, we finally managed to kill the enemy carries. However, in the process, we lost all of our inhibitors, towers, and even the Soul Drake. This situation serves as a perfect example that most League of Legends games are less about individual skill, macros or micros, and more about learning to get along with your teammates. It's a test of patience, especially when you have to endure 30 minutes of gameplay just to reach solid ground as a team. Our opponents have a team composition that excels in teamfights, while our team is more average in both teamfighting and catching individual targets. The correct approach in this situation is to remain patient. There's no shame in waiting 30 minutes before finally turning the game around. After all, our primary goal is to win the game and hopefully in doing so, learn something new about the game itself. Now that we've secured the Baron buff, we're slowly accumulating gold. I'm nearly fully built with 6 items, which means I've secured a lot of kills and decent farm along the way. Every time we engage in a fight, I'm often one of the few players left standing, soaking up some experience. The question now is, how can I become even more useful to my team? The answer is to focus on killing the enemy carries. By making effective trades, I can neutralize the gold difference between our teams. If I have 13 kills and manage to kill 2 enemy targets who together have around 40 kills, I'm significantly reducing their team's gold lead. At this stage of the game, any tiny mistake could spell disaster for us. Having lost the Soul Drake in most major fights around objectives, I believe the only correct call is to end the game in one decisive push. However, I am under chat restriction and have only 3 to 5 pings left before I also get ping restricted, so my only option is to physically position myself in mid lane, pushing any remaining towers or inhibitors and hoping my team follows my lead. Of course, this is extremely difficult because by now everyone is fed up with the game. The entire team is on edge. Everyone wants to deal huge damage and land their combos. Since this is a 40-minute game, we've all built up some level of frustration, not just with certain enemy champions, but also with our own teammates. This creates tension, where a player might ignore your call simply because they remember the bad calls you made earlier in the game. At this point, revenge and resentment are not things to take lightly. And of course, I am only human. I can only do so much on my own. Right now, we've managed to take down most of the enemy team, and the clock is ticking against us. Can we end the game before anything respawns and put this to rest? But before we dive further, let me share with you my strategy. It's simple but effective, and honestly, it's one of the trashiest strategies in the game. Clear a bush, ward the bush, and wait. Then take down anyone foolish enough to check it. Mundo fell for it, and as a jungler, I'm here to show you the way. It's up to you to walk the path. We tried our best, and though it wasn't easy, we managed to take down every tower in mid lane and leave the Nexus exposed. There's still the looming threat of the Elder Drake, but trust me when I say, I have a gut feeling that even if we go for it, our odds of winning are slimmer than if we continue pushing. So after killing Mundo, we ended up dying while clearing the Nexus, leaving the fate of the game in our team's hands. But look and behold, our team didn't fail us. They used the same technique I employed to kill Mundo, managing to catch the rest of the enemy team off guard. And with that smart, beautiful play, a tactic that can only be countered by equally smart players, we ended up winning a game that started out smoothly, spiraled into chaos, and finally became epic. And with that, dear viewers, our time together has reached its end. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you're new to the channel. As always, feel free to share your Volibear experiences with me. I truly believe that Volibear is one of the few champions that gives League of Legends a unique flavor unlike any other. Take care and peace.